Hey dorks, just a quick message reminding you to head over to twitch.tv/mindgappodcast and give us a follow. We live stream when we record our new podcast episodes, and we're live streaming video game sessions on Saturday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. We're playing super rad stuff like Among Us, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, Jackbox games, and Tabletop Simulator. Come hang out and play along with us. That's twitch.tv/mindgappodcast.
Mind Gap Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Gap Podcast. I'm Doug.
I'm Justin.
And joining us this week, straight from the quarantine files, straight from some voiceover work, straight from acting, from being in a band, please welcome Kristi Alsip.
Hi, I love that applause button. I just want to walk around with it all flipping day.
Doesn't it just make you feel good?
Honestly,
It does.
if we just had
really
that in
does.
general, just anything you do, you just get this audio, drop of people cheering. It's like, you know what? I'll take it. Yeah, it's a little condescending. Yeah, it's a little patronizing at times, but you know what? I still love it.
It's a nice little boost. I'm not gonna lie. I like it.
Well, we are so happy to have you here, and we can't wait to talk about the quarantine files and some other things. But before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. Real quick, in case you guys don't know, don't forget to check out the podcast on Spotify, as well as other places you can find the podcast. But don't forget, if you have Spotify, look us up there. Also, we have an official Discord server for Mind Gap Podcast, as well as for the gaming stream. You can find a link to it down below if you're on Twitch, just right down below. You can find it. There's a little banner. You click on that banner. We'll also post a link to it in the chat. So come join our community. Hang out with us. Chat with us. We play a lot of video games there too, so join up with a group and join us in our community. We'd love to have you there. So don't forget to check that out. Also, don't forget to follow at MGP Throwdowns for deeper dives into our throwdowns. That's at MGP Throwdowns. And of course, don't forget our Saturday night video game streams. We had a real awesome one for Halloween. We played Left 4 Dead 2. It was great. We playing zombies, zombie hunters. We tried to, hurt each other, and we did emotionally as well as in the game. It was great. And this Saturday, we're going to be playing Project Winter. If you're familiar with Among Us, the game that's blowing up the world, this is like an advanced version of this, where you have some survivors stranded in an Arctic place, and there's two traitors who are trying to prevent you from escaping, and it's a real wild time, and I'm really bad at it. So it'll be really fun to watch all of us sort of clamor and try to survive as two people try to stop that from happening. So that's Saturday night, 8 p.m. Central Time at twitch.tv/mindgappodcast. All right.
It's kind of like Among Us meets The Thing.
It's very much like that. It's
like
not
that.
so much Alien-esque, but it's the idea that, people are traitors, and they just, you can set people up to get murdered by bears. You can straight up just murder people. It's wild. It's super crazy. There's a survival element to it, where if you're left out in the cold or you don't eat enough food, you die that way. So it's kind of wild. It's kind of crazy. So come check that out. Saturday night, 8 p.m. Central Time. We'd love to hang out. But that being said, Justin, tell us about the Quarantine Files episode that's coming out this Friday, November the 6th.
We got a good one coming up for you guys. This one is our documentary episode. Look, you're not a filmmaker unless you make a documentary, right? And Kristi was along to help us out make a documentary. This one was written by Adam Smeestad and directed by Adam, and it stars the wonderfully talented Kristi Alsip. Kristi, what was it like filming it for you?
It was definitely a different experience for sure. I was kind of nervous because I didn't know what was going to be expected as far as camera angles. I knew you three were going to be on, I think we were on Zoom watching me, coordinate where the camera was going to be set up. And so It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was very rewarding because I hadn't been a part of something like that before. So, yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun.
We were talking off mic briefly. There's, without giving too much away about the contents of the episode, there is a scene where you get some fan mail and you have to open it up, and it's tell us a little bit about what the fan mail is, and then what the story upon you actually getting the prop.
Yeah, so I opened up some fan mail, and it is a men's thong. And now let me say that the day that we filmed that, I had gone to get my taxes done about an hour away. And I thought I'd have plenty of time and leisurely be able to get things set up and prep for the, well, it was, the tax accountant was running late. And so I get out of there and I'm like, I got to pick up a thong on the way home. So I stop at Lover's Lane and I'm in a big hurry. So I barrel in there and I said, hi, I need a men's thong, glittery or the wildest thong that you have. And normally I wouldn't just bust into a Lover's Lane and declare that.
Yeah, not a typical day. Not get my taxes done.
And so,
I'm gonna rush into Lover's Lane and find a sparkle thong.
Rush into Lover's Lane and find a sparkle thong. Gotta find a fancy thong for a guy, and she directs me to the thong wall, which they have, and she approaches me, and she just goes in a really sort of, in a normal conversational tone. She goes, so what's the occasion? And I just thought, God, do you really want the answer to that? I can't imagine what it would be like at their customer service trainings, how to prep and role play for whatever, person rolls in there for what they want. I just can't even imagine what they have to go through.
I don't think I could approach.
So I bought a thong.
I've worked a lot of customer service in my life, and I don't think I could approach anyone with the straight face as they're shopping for a thong and go, so what's the occasion? Like, any answer that I get is going to be an answer I don't want,
Yeah.
It
wouldn't be my kind of gig.
So what do you think kind of occasions do they run into? I'm sure anniversary's got to be up there, right? Bachelorette, probably. Yeah.
Maybe a newly divorced guy, any kind of fetish thing. I mean, who knows? I don't think I'd really want to hear about what other people are doing. I'm concerned about what I'm doing. I don't need to know what everybody else is doing. So
I want to meet
so we ended up
go ahead.
We ended up giving that thong to I played at that wedding. We ended up giving that to the groom. So
that's amazing.
It did come in handy.
I want to meet the guy who, when they ask, like, well, what's the occasion? They're like, no, just need some new underwear. Like, just flat out, he's just there shopping. Instead of going to Target, that's where he goes for his briefs. Yeah.
Or it's just so comfortable.
Right, exactly. I need something that's more bedazzled. If you have anything that's more bedazzled, I could use that, because that's what we all need in our soft underwear.
Justin, you ever worn a thong?
I have not.
Neither have I.
All right, good.
I was kind of hoping we could.
Listeners, have any of you out there ever worn a thong? Sound off and let us know. Jared, I'm looking at you. Jared
in the Twitch chat says, I'm running for a marathon would be a response. Like, what's the occasion? Running for a marathon. Do these have racing stripe protection? Gross.
I did, however.
Nothing about that looks comfortable.
No.
I did, however, at one point, I was graduated with a degree in radio broadcasting, and so I had to do internships in the Chicago radio market. And one of the jocks that I interned for, one of the DJs, was a very old school rocker, and I was interning for him, and he turned around in the booth one time, bent down to get something, and he apparently that was just par for the course for him. But yeah, he definitely had that was how he rolled. He rolled with thongs. So I was like, oh, this guy's rock and roll right here.
Yeah,
living on the edge.
I think that's one of those things where you got to get used to it. Probably, something you gotta It's I think this stage of the game, you know, I'm 37. You know, it's like cool if this is something I'm gonna get. I mean, it's a commitment, you know, and I think there's just a lot of things that with dudes are just not as attractive on dudes as they are on women, and that's one of those things where it's like, you know, I don't know. You know what? To each their own. I'm definitely not judging anyone. Whoever wants to do it, you know.
On the right guy, I'm sure it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think in general, your average dude putting that on, it's gonna be like, man, what are we doing here? You know, what's the goal?
I'll tell you what the goal is: seduction, Douglas. Seduction.
Yeah, I think in the way guys think about seduction is not the way that. I mean, who am I to speak on that? But I think in general, dudes like, this is what I would like, so this is what I'm gonna do to the other person. It's like, I don't think that's how it works.
You're also presuming it's a guy to girl ratio too.
Fair point. I mean,
know what I mean?
It could be a guy on guy, and at the same time,
guys know what they like.
That's true.
Saying.
That's right. You know,
that's all that is.
Yeah, there's no judgment here.
So again, listeners, let us know, what is your experiences with thongs been like? 100 points for the person who has the best story.
100 points for the Hogwarts Cup.
And the points mean nothing around here. So anyway, Friday.
I was gonna say, what do you get with the points?
I mean, you can cash them in for different things, you know, like whatever you want.
A
you know,
gift
it goes
card
in the
for
jar.
Lover's Lane.
It could be.
Oh yes. This episode brought to you by Lover's Lane.
Exactly.
For all your male thong needs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, yes, episode 5 is coming out this Friday. I want everyone to check it out. Kristi did an insanely awesome job. We're very pleased with it. Yeah. So, some sad news. Well, actually, before we get into that, I want to talk real quick about your musical endeavors.
Yes.
Talk to us about Crawford's Daughter.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Crawford's Daughter is my band that I formed about 10-ish years ago. We do mostly covers, some originals, but we do a lot from like Fleetwood Mac, Little Big Town, Led Zeppelin, Pat Benatar, Heart, Lucinda Williams, Pretenders. I love it. I love a lot of tight harmonies.
Those are all right.
I love
in my
playing
musical
out.
tastes. I love those.
Really?
Yeah.
I love rock, blue, a lot of 70s rock. We do some blues, some soul, some Marvin Gaye, Al Green. My guitar player and I have known each other for about 17 years, Rich and I. So we've just learned to really follow each other and just kind of harmonize even on songs that if we just pull it out of the archives that we haven't done in forever, we'll just work it out pretty seamlessly because we've worked together for so long. And he has a very high voice and I have a very low voice. So he often sings the high harmonies and I sing the low.
That
so
works
it's kind
well.
of an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
But he's phenomenal. Of course, we had our whole festival season this year was just canceled. As everyone's season was canceled, you know,
right.
But but I love it. I love it. I'll be booking gigs until, you know, nobody wants to see me anymore, but but I love it.
I can't make it up the stage. Yeah.
Yeah, so I love it, and one of the reasons also that I'm kind of grateful to my friend Veronica the Bride that asked me to learn that song and pick up the guitar again is I'm working towards getting about a half hour of a set of acoustic songs ready to go, so I can start working that into the band as well. So to kind of get out of my comfort zone and not just sing but play guitar as well. So that's the goal.
Now, have you played music for most of your life then?
Yeah. Well, I did. So I've been singing since I was a kid. I was in choir every day of my life from 5th grade through college. And then I started doing some musical theater in my 20s, in college, well, high school, and then and in my 20s. I did musical theater, and then I started branching out into bands when I was about 29 or 30, and I've been doing that for a very long time. So I prefer being in a band than musical theater. I was just talking to my significant other, Frank, about there are some musicals I like, but not too many because I can't get past the fact that in real life, somebody's just not going to break out into song.
Right? I mean, here's
know
my
what I
thing.
mean?
Oh, I know what you mean. I can't stand musicals. Except,
Oh, wait a second.
Except
Doug,
for one.
Is this something you hate? Do you hate musicals?
Yes.
Guys.
Yes.
Stuff is stupid, stuff is dumb. Doug hates stuff.
Doug hates stuff, guys. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that was going to happen.
This is a new segment that every time Doug talks about something he hates, we have a theme song now. All right. So, Doug, tell us about the new thing you hate.
So this is what you were saying was something you didn't want you didn't want me to know about. Cool.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't like musicals mostly for that reason. Like I can't really get on the fact with, like, right now my daughter is watching this show on Disney Plus called Elena of Avalor, and I have to give him credit, man. Every single 30-minute episode has a song, a very like specific song for that episode, and every episode they break out, and it's like you start hearing the music come on. It's like a really like there's some of these are really heartfelt moments, and they're like, now let's sing about this moment. It's like this evil sorceress killed my parents, and I'm going to sing a song in two-part harmony about how this happened. And like while they're about to, I'm just like it pulls me out of the moment. And I love music, but it's one of my one of the musicals for some reason I like is Newsies. Like it's the only one I like. And it's the same thing. These rough and tumble kids in the early 1900s in New York. They're like all of a sudden they break out in these amazing dance moves. They'll fight each other for their own territory to sell newspapers, but then they'll also sing about how they're the kings of New York. And all this sort of stuff. It's just like it breaks me out of the moment.
I mean, I totally get the idea of it's suspension of disbelief. I mean, I understand that. I've done theater for a long time, but there's just something about it where, and the thing is, when I did musical theater, I kept getting cast as the same role in the same musical.
I'm sure that definitely makes it more difficult to stomach.
Which it's a great part, but it was Nancy and Oliver. So the lead woman in Oliver, the saloon singing prostitute who gets murdered. Very uplifting role.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great role, but I never, fit into that genre of I'm the blonde ingenue and I'm the soprano and I'm in love and I'm talking about my,
Right.
I was always like the drug den woman or the prostitute or, which is, fine work if you can get it. Musical theater wise.
I was gonna say not actually being a drug den prostitute. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
But once I got into bands, I thought this is what I'd really rather be doing. So but then I love acting as well, but I just kind of separate the two.
Sure. Which one, if you could, and I know this is kind of like which one of your children do you love better, but like if you could choose one over the like where do you feel like your heart really lies? Is it within acting or within music?
For a long time, I thought it was singing. But now that in the last 2 years, since I've gotten into doing film and on-camera stuff, I love it so much that I might have to lean towards acting.
That's interesting.
I'm an actor who sings, singer who acts. I'm not sure. But in the past, especially in the last year and a half or so, probably when we kicked off with our son's girlfriend, Jeff, that was one of my first acting on-camera projects that I'd ever done.
Was it really?
And then I've been, I'd done a feature film 2 months before that, and that was about it. But I've been doing it fairly consistently and luckily getting some work over quarantine and focusing on that. And I got my reel done and just, I'm so immersed in that now. And so I've had to put music on the back burner because our gigs have been canceled,
Right.
So I've had a chance to focus more on voice work and film stuff. So I don't know, it might change back to singing, once we get back in the swing of things, but yeah, I love them both. So
I mean, like, and it's really hard to separate the two. Like in high school, I was in a band as well, and at the time, I'm like, that's everything. I want to do this, and like we could go someplace. We couldn't, but it was nice to think that. And then I got into film, and I'm like, all right, no, this is actually really cool. So I understand how that oscillates, back and forth.
Yeah.
Doug,
Yeah.
were you ever
It's
in
nice
a
to have
band?
options, though.
Yeah, I was in
You
a cover
played-
band in high school, and
You were? Okay.
Yeah, and man, I look back, I'm like, I wonder if how things would have gone if we just would have practiced. Like we just, we would show up and play. I mean, we were fine. I mean, it was one of those things where I practiced on my own, but we never practiced all together. Like we were all, I think saying we were accomplished musicians is probably being pretty generous, but we all could play our instruments, but we never practiced the stuff together because we just didn't have time, and we didn't have a place to really do it like after school, because a lot of us were in sports and everything. By the time we could practice, it was like 7:00 at night. Everyone's like, yeah, I live in rural Missouri. People were like, shut up with that racket, so we kind of just had to make do with what we had, and we had fun doing it, but it was always just a hobby. It was always just something fun to do, but we were
What did you play?
we did a lot of like early 2000s pop punk and alternative rock stuff, like Blink-182, some Goldfinger, things of that nature. So like we were it was very fun, silly
You
stuff.
guitar player?
I did. I play guitar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're probably thinking, oh, Time in a Bottle. That was just easy, right?
No, I taught myself how to play the guitar, so like I don't know what chords are. I just I know my hands in this position make a good sound. So I couldn't tell you any of the chords or what they are. I can play them, but I don't know music theory for anything. So
see, that's wild. Yeah, I don't know any music. In fact, when music theory, I can't wrap my brain around that. When I played at that wedding, and the guy who was running sound, he got a hold of me ahead of time, and he said, "So, are you going to need a music stand?" And I said, "No, I can't read music. I either know it or I don't." I said, "I'm just showing up." And he was like, "Oh, okay."
yeah,
But
I
I
remember
thought there's no point in me looking at any sheet music,
Yeah.
because I grew up playing piano, and I was able to read sheet music, and I did band in high school and stuff like that. But it was just something like I never really attached it in my brain. I was like, this is the things that I can play, but I never ingrained it to the point where I could use it outside of those things that I was doing. I don't know if that makes sense, but if I were to write my own my own music for the sheet music, I wouldn't be able to do it. And it was the same thing. I learned how to play a song, and then I just knew it. And when I was in grad school, I went to grad school for music business. I remember one of my production teachers was saying, you need to know music theory so you can speak the same language to every musician, so that everyone knows how to communicate. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I have no clue how to be like, hey man, let's try this in I don't know, a different key. Well, what key? I don't know. What do you think sounds good? I mean, I like D. Let's go D. Do you know how to do that? Because I don't.
Do you know who else doesn't know how to read or didn't know how to read music? Eddie Van Halen.
You know what? Good for him.
I did not realize that. I heard the whole Paul McCartney thing, but I didn't know Van Halen.
Yeah,
That's
he said
interesting.
he didn't know. He created his own style, and he never learned, and he just never knew how to read it.
That's fascinating.
Good for
So-
him.
Yeah,
I grew up playing trumpet and in the high school band, so I knew how to read music in the same way that a 6-year-old knows how to read a book. I could sound out the words, you give me enough time, I could figure it out. But I could never sit down with a fresh sheet of music and go, all right, here we go, and then just spit it out. So the minute that I stopped playing trumpet, that all went out the window.
Yeah.
And I had guitar lessons for years, but then the minute that they started to try to get into the theory of well, here's what the relative minor is, I went, nope, I'm out. Don't even.
yeah.
I don't want to know that. I just really want to know how to play.
What does it all mean?
Right. I just
Yeah,
want
it
to know how
hurts
to
my
play
brain.
most Dave Matthews songs in high school.
Of course.
Teach me the fingering, and that's all I need.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. There was something that someone just said in there that I was going to use to transition seamlessly, but instead, we're just going to do the transition sound and talk about the very sad passing this week of Mr. Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Died at 90 years old. 90? Was it 90? I think it was 90.
I didn't realize he was 90.
Yeah, let me.
I
just
didn't
double
realize
check
he was
that.
90.
Sean
Yeah.
Connery.
Yeah, he was
Quick
90.
Check 90. Cool. Yeah, man. I feel really bad the last phase because Doug has told this story before, but in case Kristi hasn't heard it, catch us up on like why he kind of retired out of acting.
So again, I think this is verified somewhere, but my understanding is that he originally was up for the role in Morpheus in The Matrix, but when he read the script, he didn't understand it, so he passed. Matrix became a massive success and everything, and so I think he was kind of bummed out about that. And then he was also offered the role of Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, and once again he read the script and he didn't understand it, he didn't get it, so he passed on it. Lord of the Rings becomes a massive success. So then he's handed the script to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He didn't get it, but having been, sort of busted the last 2 times, he's like, all right, I'm going to do it. And it was not a very good movie. It was not received well. Yeah. And after that, my understanding is he basically sort of was like, that's it, I'm done. He just basically called it quits after that.
Really?
There was some quote where he's like, I don't understand Hollywood anymore. He's basically like, I don't get how things are working.
I don't understand this. Because imagine you don't know anything about Lord of the Rings. Or the Matrix, we know it's part of our pop culture, but being presented with that and being like, wait, so they're in a computer or what? I don't, not understanding that. And then Gandalf being
when they jump, they'll be suspended in air and go in slow motion in the somersault. What?
Right.
He knows kung fu.
What does that mean?
Just weird stuff. And then Lord of the Rings is high fantasy. And he's just like, what? Right. Orcs? Urukai? What? I don't understand any of this. It's just to be presented with these things.
He probably had never ever had to work on a scene on a set that required that much green screen, that much special effects. Because up to that point, most of what he'd done was practical.
Yeah.
So that probably was just completely. And then unfortunately, he got his taste of special effects when it came to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Yeah. God, what a turd that movie was.
Yeah, that movie's really bad. It's not good.
Anyway, so that's why he stopped acting, which was kind of a bummer because I really enjoyed Sean Connery. Personally, one of my favorites is The Rock. That is such a guilty pleasure movie that if that's on, things are stopping, and Justin's watching that movie. What are your guys' Sean Connery picks? If you could, The Rock.
No, I was just repeating. I have not seen that, but I liked him in The Untouchables and Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that man just exudes class, just drips of class. And yeah, I mean, 90 years old, he had a good run. I'm really surprised by that revelation about how he just made some bad decisions on scripts, and that's why he got out of acting. That's actually kind of sad,
right?
Yeah, you think about everything he's done, from like James Bond through what was that one, Zardoz, when he was in a thong, he'd been through some weird shit, and to kind of come to the point where everything that was really popular, to feel that disconnected must really suck. To be like, right. I don't understand what this is. And I don't know what to really put myself behind. But I mean, someone mentioned this Jared mentioned this in the chat. He's like, imagine The Matrix with Will Smith and Sean Connery. Like, imagine him in some of these prolific roles. Lawrence Fishburne did amazing. Obviously Ian McKellen does great as Gandalf. But imagine just for a moment, Sean Connery just being like,
right? Imagine Indiana Jones's dad.
Right. Being that mentor, that right. Like, I mean, obviously him doing any of the sort of the physicality stuff, like I think it'd be hard to see. It'd be like Liam Neeson and Taken. It'd be a lot of quick cuts. It's like he's not really doing this. But
right.
Well, I just recently read that Will Smith was supposed to be in The Matrix, and he turned it down, and he just kicked himself because he did what, Wild Wild West instead.
Yeah,
I think that's did. Right. Yeah,
you're right. That's right. Will Smith was supposed to be in that.
I just caught that on like a TBS USA type thing, and oh boy, yeah, it's just what I remembered.
Kenneth Branagh's in Wild Wild West too. I mean, that guy's a Shakespearean actor and director. I mean, that guy.
So he was misled.
Yeah, I think they
Did
all.
Did he fire his agent or what?
Well, I mean, I think it made a lot of money.
I was going to say,
I mean,
that
Yeah.
third mansion he bought in Miami or whatever probably, probably made up for it.
kind of, Kristi, going back to sort of your background in acting. I mean, if you were handed a role that was like, hey, look, we think this is going to be pretty hot. Like, this seems like it's going to be a really great role, and you don't have to play a prostitute in a drug den. Like, this could be something that's pretty amazing. And you look at it, you don't get it, or you look at it, it feels very cliche, it feels very tropey, but everyone's like, hey, this could be really good, versus something that like you're super passionate about, right? Like, if you, what I'm trying to get at is like something that looks like an obvious payday or has a high potential for a payday versus something that you're very interested in. Like, what would you rather do? Something for the payday or something that you're like, hey, this seems like it's my cup of tea?
If I had to choose between the two, like they were filming at the same time and I couldn't try to finagle to do both. God. Well, since I mean, even though I'm an older actress, I'm just starting out in film, I would probably, even though my heart would want to do the thing I'm passionate about, I'd have to get that one film in there that's going to keep my payday coming so then I can finance my life to do my other stuff.
Yeah.
Do the smaller indie projects. Frank and my boyfriend and I talk about that a lot. He's like, God, just get that one good voiceover, or that one good thing that just gets those residuals coming in, and then have that, have the financial part set, and then you can really hone in on the stuff you want to do. I mean, it just seems to make more sense to me. And hopefully and once you're in that position, you can create the roles that you really want to play.
Yeah. I think you're right. There's so
mean?
many stories about that, like Glenn Close in Guardians of the Galaxy. She's like, that basically allowed me to do whatever I wanted. Not that movie's awful or anything, but she obviously wasn't passionate about it. But she's like, cool, I got this huge payday. Now I can do what I want. Like, I don't have to.
Right.
You hear actors all the time talk about the one for them, one for me thing, where they're like, I'll do one for the studio. And then we've baked it into the contract where like, now I get to bring them one and they have to greenlight it or something. So
Yeah.
But I think too, like we've seen a lot of people go with, I mean, Robert Pattinson is one of those, as we've talked about the Robert Pattinson, Daniel Craig, Elijah Wood thing, where all of them were part of these giant tentpole franchises making huge, huge money. And then they had all that money, and then they were able to just go, okay, now I get to choose literally anything I want, so like that, it seems like a really logical way to go. But if you can stomach doing that big payday tentpole movie.
Yeah. I just think of my dream. I mean, I like those gritty kind of films. Like, I loved Charlize Theron in Monster. I think Patty Jenkins. Now Patty is interesting because Patty Jenkins, the director, she did Monster, and then she also did Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So she has the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
And then another director I love is Jean-Marc Vallée, who directed Dallas Buyers Club.
Oh, right.
Okay.
I love that film. I love it. I think it's brilliant. I thought Jared Leto, Matthew McConaughey were absolutely incredible, and I loved the editing. I loved the directing. I loved the music. I loved everything about it. But being faced with something like that, I mean, of course, that ended up making a ton of money. But if you look at it from sort of a, standpoint of what you're passionate about, as opposed to one of those big, Lord of the Rings, Matrix franchises, I would love to do something like Dallas Buyers Club.
Absolutely. That brought that weight to his career, like where you're just like he made that what could be looked at as like an indie film or a passion project or whatever, and
Matthew McConaughey.
No, for Jean-Marc Vallée, like
Jean-Marc Vallée. Okay.
Yeah, like he took something that could have been looked at as like maybe a smaller, not a big tentpole, and he made it so grounded and so like robust that basically people couldn't ignore it. And you got these, award after award, won Academy Award for, best actor leading role and all that. Like it really solidified, his ability to, to work in that medium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Definitely
what's
a favorite of mine.
I think what's tough too is like being stuck.
Sorry, real quick. Budget
go
was $5 million, so that definitely could be considered an indie film, and it grossed $55 million at the box office. So it made money, and it got some was budgeted at $5 million.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's wild.
The film won the award for best makeup, hairstyling, nominations for best picture, best screenplay, and best editing. Like, yeah. Best supporting actor. Like, yeah, like the accolades of this movie were ridiculous.
Best use of budget in a major motion film.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I got to tell you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Doug?
No, I'm good.
Okay. When I saw the previews for Dallas Buyers Club, well before it came out, we were at the movies and I saw it and I thought, oh, this looks interesting. And all I thought about was the style of the movie, and Matthew McConaughey was in it. I forgot what else was in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we go to see it, and the character of Rayon comes in, Jared Leto's transgender character. And I remember recalling that I thought, gosh, this person looks familiar to me. And I leaned over to Frank and I said, I was so into this film and so enthralled by everybody in it that I leaned over to him and I said, wow, this young actor is really going to go places. This is a great role for this person. I actually said that. I'm like, wow, I'm so excited for this actor. I can't wait to find out who it is. And then at the credits roll and it said Jared Leto. I get the f out. What? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I missed that because I know who Jared Leto is. I love Jared Leto. But I didn't even recognize him in that film.
Yeah.
And that's only happened to me. That happened to me when I watched Gary Oldman in True Romance as Drexel.
Mm-hmm.
I love Gary Oldman. Had no clue that was him until the end of the movie. And
Gary Oldman,
those kinds of moments where I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
Yeah. Gary Oldman on more than one occasion has lost himself in a character and has fooled me. Like where I'll have to go to the IMDb or whatever. I'm like, oh shit, that was Gary Oldman. Okay. And usually it's somewhere in the voice you can tell, or the eyes, but Jared Leto, there's a few people who definitely just can just disappear into a character. And it's amazing to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the time that happened to me was obviously Heath Ledger's the Joker and The Dark Knight. I was like, I don't even see Heath Ledger. And then the other one, it's a random one, Jake Gyllenhaal and Nightcrawler. I don't know if either of you have seen that one.
I just rewatched that the other day.
Yeah. That was when I watched it. I'm like, I don't even know if this is. I forgot this was. I was watching Jake Gyllenhaal. Like it was very. It's not one of those movies I'm running back to rewatch because it's kind of heavy. But
it's heavy. But man, he another role where he lost like 40 pounds, and when he loses 40 pounds, his face is so sunken in, but his eyes are just like bulgy, just bugged out, which gave him this creepy, and then he would smile, just this creepy smile. It was really effective.
Yeah.
He's pretty amazing too. Pretty amazing too.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Jake Gyllenhaal is an actor who I always I really like him, but he's never at the front of my mind when I think of like you go through that like, oh, who would I cast in this role or something. He's never at the front of my mind, but every time I've seen him in a film, I've been blown away by what he brings to it. And his ability to his comedic ability. Have you guys seen the John Mulaney special on Netflix, the comedy special he did called the was it the John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch? It was supposed to be like a 70s morning kid show that he put together. It was hysterical, but Jake Gyllenhaal had a cameo in it, and he commits himself to the bit no matter how stupid he's going to look, and I respect the hell out of him for it. I would strongly recommend just looking up the clip on YouTube.
What's it called again?
I think it's called John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch. It's on Netflix. It was Mulaney's most recent special that he put together. It was very funny, but again, Gyllenhaal was a unexpected cameo and very welcome. Very, very welcome.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
he's fantastic.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
I'm a big fan of his sister as well, Maggie.
Yes.
Like, she was someone that didn't get on my radar till much later, but like, I think it was the Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Dark Knight, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
That was the first time that I really had like an awareness of her. And from that point, then I started I'm like, oh, like she's in all these other movies too. And she's another powerhouse that I really enjoy.
Or how about Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal and Donnie Darko playing brother and sister? Ah?
Oh yeah, they were really young in that, right?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal movie
Like
too.
really young in that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's interesting. Do you guys come from a family that has other performers? Do you come from a musician's family or actor family?
My dad was in a band in the 70s. They're pretty like in the small town that he was in, they were like the band to play weddings or something like that. So I learned guitar from him initially, but my mom should never. God, I love her, but she should never go anywhere near a stage or a musical instrument. She does a wonderful job as a teacher, and she found her strength, and we'll say that. That's my dad is really the only person in my family that's a performer of any sorts.
Yeah, I have no
Okay.
idea where I get
That's
my
cool.
performance from because both my parents are teachers. But dad was a collegiate coach and teacher. Mom was a at-risk reading teacher. I don't know where I got it from, but I got it. So,
What do you
She's
come
an
from?
at-risk reading teacher?
yeah. So basically, she would get kindergarten through second grade. These kids basically that didn't know how to read, and essentially, if they didn't pass her class, they would go into like the learning disabled classes. So she was sort of like the
Oh, okay.
last line of defense against that. So, yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Slotty says in the chat here that teaching is a type of performance. I've also done corporate training and things like that. So yeah, there's definitely a level of performance to that. But I don't know. I've always enjoyed that creative aspect of it. But definitely, my brother's pretty creative too. But I don't know where it comes from. But I'm happy I have it.
Yeah, I don't have any. I'm in my entire family tree, both sides. None of my cousins, nobody sings, plays, acts, nothing. Although my family's very supportive, very supportive. My mom and dad are my dad's 80, my mom's 79. They come out almost to every gig.
Oh, that's awesome.
Almost every gig. We've had some gigs lately, but they haven't come out for those just because of quarantine and it's high risk and that kind of thing. But typically on a typical, gig cycle, they're at just about every single one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. My sister and I, we're about 3 years apart. We look alike, and we are absolutely polar opposite. You couldn't pay her to get on a stage. Yeah, nobody sings, nobody does anything. So I always joke that I'm the apple that fell off the family tree into another
Yeah.
yard. But
Yeah, the same goes
that's
for
all
my
right.
sister. She played piano when she was growing up, but like she never sought out the spotlight, never wanted to like put what she made like out there, like like a filmmaker does, like a musician does, like yourself. Like it was very she was happy to have close circle of friends, but never really wanted the spotlight. And so I can relate to that where you're just like, how are we siblings? Because we're so different.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
always
my
interesting how
dad,
that
I'm really
works.
lucky. My dad could basically be our band manager because ever since my dad, we got him a laptop about 10 years ago when he had surgery. And my sister and I were like, you should get on Facebook, Dad, give you something to do. He can't get off Facebook now. And it's great because he spends his time he'll look up other bands that are similar to us and then look on their website to see where they're playing. And then almost every day he'll send me a link to a new bar or a brewery or a festival or a booking agent. And he'll say, well, they're playing there. You should play there too.
That's
So
cool.
half the places I have found are through work my dad has done by researching on the internet.
That's amazing.
And Yeah, we talk my parents and I talk almost every night. Talked to him actually just before I got on this call. And but yeah, he loves movies. We always talk about movies, and he's always asking me, what audition I have coming up, just everything. He's super involved, which
Yeah.
I'm really lucky.
Do you
Really
think he would
lucky,
be as
so.
involved in your music if he didn't like the music you played?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he'd come out to everything.
That's
I'm
awesome.
sure.
That's a trooper.
I mean, I think he generally does like the music we play, but
Mhm.
and he's told me before, like, when I was in another band, like an oldies band, I guess he gets into that music a little bit more than Crawford's Daughter, and he has said that, but he still comes to Crawford's Daughter gigs.
That's really cool.
So I think he's honest, but oh yeah, we talk movies all the time, and yeah, it's great.
That was going to be a follow-up I had to that too, is that does he give you honest feedback? Because I feel like that's such a hard thing to get from close friends and family, is because as an artist, you're like, I want you to be brutally honest about what do you think of this so I can improve upon it if it needs that. And from my family, they're so supportive, but all I ever get is, "Oh, this is so good. You're doing such a good job." And I'm like, "Not everything I do is
Right.
good. It can't be. It just can't
To
be."
me, that sounds like I don't
That's
understand what
impossible.
you do, but I love you. That's what it sounds
Yes.
like to me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
so
I mean,
hard to
I
get honest feedback.
think it is, and I think my dad. I mean, I've said before, like, "Oh my God, I totally screwed up that line," and he might be like, "Oh, you'll get it next time," or you know what I mean, or just supportive. But I think he's mostly, well, he's always supportive, but I think he tries to be as honest as he can. But yeah, there have been times when I'm just like, "Man, I really screwed that up," and he's like, "It'll get better next time." You know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
he has that level of honesty. He knows I'm not gonna, crawl into a hole and never perform again. So
I always find it interesting the artists who have family members who basically 100% don't know what they do or don't understand why they're famous, like comedians or something like that, where they've they're like, "Hey, what do your parents think about your act?" They're like, "Oh, they don't watch my act. Like, they don't know
right.
anything about what I do." And like their parents, like, they have this prolific, comedian or whatever, and they're like, "Yeah, they don't really understand what I do. They love me, but they're just like, I don't know. Don't ask me what my kid does.
Yeah.
He tells jokes, but I don't know what they are, and I don't, it's not
over
my
my
thing,
head. Yeah.
Ugh.
So can I tell you that you sent me that link to Baby Shark,
Mm.
and now I can't unhear it.
Oh no! Wait, was this the
As
first
a
time
mu-
you'd heard that?
Yeah, never knew it ever existed. So thanks.
As a
for that.
musician, did that offend your sensibilities?
It didn't offend it. I just if I was a parent, now Doug, you have a child.
I do.
If I was a parent of a child that wanted to play that constantly, I have scenarios in my head that I think I might have to stage, that our house got robbed and our TV is gone, or our phone, all of our electronics are gone, kid. I'm so sorry. I don't know. That was brutal. But you had asked me in the email about what song that I can't stand.
Mhm.
Yeah,
What song
what would your torture song be?
Absolutely Dire Straits' Walk of Life.
Really?
Can't freaking stand it.
Tell me, do you have a reason why, or is it just kind of like something you can't put your finger on?
I don't like, what's his name? Mark Knopfler?
Sure,
The
that sounds
voice?
right.
Sure.
Right? Is that his name? Yeah. Not a fan of his voice. Just everything about it. Can't stand it.
Just
With a
looking up the name
passion.
here.
Like, can't stand it.
Yeah, Mark
Mark
Knopfler, that's
Knopfler?
his name. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be damned. That's
Yeah,
so
hate it.
interesting. I did see. I thought it was going to be something like, "Oh, the Lamb Chop song," or something more like. I didn't realize. I didn't ever think you were going to pull like an actual classic. I guess classic rock. Is that?
I
guess
think
it's
at this
classic
point
rock.
they are
Yeah.
probably,
Early
Yeah.
80s. I think it came out in like 83 or something.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll call that classic rock.
fan.
Beginning of MTV.
Mark, if you're out there, I'm so sorry. But
I'm sure you're a lovely
know.
human being.
sure, we all have our gifts.
Yeah.
I
Right.
guess I'm just not appreciating Mark's. But I don't know. I'm not a fan of Dire Straits. Not a fan.
That's fair.
That's fair.
So-
For those wondering, what we're talking about here is Baby Shark is now the most watched video on YouTube ever. So you're welcome for that. You all
Mind-blowing.
made that happen. And there's an Oklahoma prison where it is now being used as torture for inmates. I would say that's cruel, unusual, but to each their own.
And for the record, that song has been viewed over 7 billion times. So that's the record we're talking about here. Like it's awful. And I remember this song, fortunately, didn't take over my household. It's something that my daughter was aware of. They played it at her daycare and things like that. And, she's familiar with it, but it wasn't one of those things where she became obsessed with it, thankfully. There's so many things that, like, come by that I'm like, oh, please don't let this latch on. Like American Girl catalog came by and we were like, in the recycling.
Yeah.
Don't let her see it. Like, because I'm like, I don't want, it's bad enough where she watches these shows on Disney Plus. There's this thing called Minnie's Minnie's Boutique. It's like she owns this little like bow shop, and they're little shorts. They're like 2 minutes long. 2-minute long episodes, and you'd be like, oh, that's not that big of a deal, but the theme song to it is like 25 to 30 seconds, and you can't skip the theme song because the episodes are so short. So
God.
all you hear is the theme song to Minnie's Boutique over and over and over, and she can burn through like all of the episodes in like an hour, and then she starts them over. I got to the point where I'm like, no, we can't watch this. Like, we can't. This is it's awful. This because then we'll sit there like going, we're singing, they're humming the theme song, and we're like, welcome to Manny's Boutique, and we're just singing it around the house. And like, oh God, make it stop.
Now, how old is she?
She's 4.5.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a cute age though.
Old enough
She
to
is
know
one
better.
of the cutest kids you've ever seen, too. My torture song would probably be "Summer Girls" by LFO. I can't.
How does that go?
As long as
Nope,
I've
not
known
gonna do
you,
it.
this has been the topic. As long as I've known you, it was a weird, like, it was late 90s or early 2000. I can't remember. Right around that time period.
It was 1999.
There we go.
Yes, but it is the dumbest. Like, you listen to that song and you end up stupider than when you went in. It is mind-numbingly horrible. I think all of them should be arrested for ever having put that out into the ether. Yeah.
Well,
in the chat,
The
someone.
prison,
No, go
the
ahead.
people of the prison, they were charged, right? For the torture song, they got a
wonder-
misdemeanor
was that-
charge against them.
Was that LFO that was in prison being tortured by Baby Shark? Maybe the band LFO is in prison in Oklahoma and they're being tortured by Baby Shark. That would be poetic for me.
So, just in case you're not familiar with this song, Kristi, I'm just going to read some of the lyrics for you, just so you get an
Okay.
idea of what it's.
Oh, I'm not.
So
Maybe I'll get inspired to write my own lyrics.
here you go. I mean,
As you read,
Can't get better than Baby Shark.
as you
Doug,
read this, just consider that maybe an AI wrote this. Who knows?
Doug, as you read this, I'm gonna play fart sound effects over all of it.
Yeah, I like it when the girls stop by in the summer. Do you remember? When we met last summer, New Kids on the Block had a bunch of hits. Chinese food makes me sick. And I think it's fly when girls stop by for the summer. I like girls that wear Abercrombie and Fitch. I'd take her if I had one wish, because those two words rhyme. But since she's gone, since that summer, whew, it is gross.
That's deep.
There's
That's
a
like a
line
weird
in
stream
there.
of conscious.
There's a line in there that just says Macaulay Culkin was in Home Alone. Why did they need to tell us that? Fuck you. That's why.
I also love it.
Because they hate us.
You buzz like a hornet. Billy Shakespeare wrote a whole bunch of sonnets. Like, these words don't rhyme, and they call him Billy Shakespeare. Like, it's not
Doug,
okay.
You gotta say it right. Billy Shakespeare wrote a whole bunch of sonnets.
Sonnets.
Because obviously they're from Boston, right? So
From
Billy
sonnets?
Shakespeare wrote a whole bunch of sonnets, right?
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
Well, what's
I'm angry.
mind-boggling to me is that there are people out there who have spent their life learning how to craft a brilliant song, come up with the perfect bridge and chorus and lyric, and then you've got Baby Shark storming the interwebs.
Well, the diabolical
You know?
part of it is it's the stuff that the kids like. The
Right.
kids latch onto that. They sing it at school, and also parents are like, "Hey, I'm gonna entertain you. Go listen to this thing. Like, here's a tablet, or here's my phone," and the kids just watch it over. And there's also so many different versions of it too. Like, it's insane. And so I get like how it is that it's just. You hear those things and you realize that there is evil in the world because it is essentially the way that gets stuck in your brain. That tune, it just edges its way in, and you find yourself not being able to break out of it. It's like this is some combination of elements in our universe that should not be unlocked. So, and yet here it is, and it's like, great, now we're taking over your brain. So, congratulations.
Well, you have more patience than I do. I'll fully admit that. I don't think I could. I think I'd be done.
Oh, I mean, if there's an annoying toy around that makes a lot of noise, it just, it disappears in the night and goes in the garbage. I mean, that's how it works for me. Like, I don't, what happened? I don't know. It's gone. It's just, that's where I got my mom in me because my mom, she's diabolical too. My dad listened to like a lot of things like Meatloaf in particular. He loved Meatloaf, like Bad Outta Hell. Like that was one of his favorite albums. My mom didn't like it. Wouldn't you know it? One day the cassette tape just vanished from the car. And my dad was like, where'd it go? She's like, I don't know. And then she told us, of course, when we were kids, we told my dad that he goes, I knew it. I knew she threw it away. But that's just like, that's kind of mean too, right? You don't like someone else's music, so you throw it away. I mean, that's some. So
didn't he just go out and buy another cassette?
I think he was afraid it would get lost again, So it was almost like, setting, a dead fish wrapped in, cloth. It's like, oh, it's a message. Meatloaf sleeps with the fishes,
He pulls the sheets back in the morning and the tape has been unraveled and just piled next to him in the bed. Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's a message.
You got to get your pencil and start twirling that tape back in there. Maybe you guys are too young for that, but that's what I
remember
had to do
that
in
absolutely.
My youth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had
yeah.
My prized possession was Michael Jackson's Bad on tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry, not Bad. I had that on tape. It was Dangerous. The album Dangerous.
Gotcha.
That one?
Yeah.
Oh man, all day. All day.
Wore out that tape.
I wore out that tape. Absolutely. And it started with the skit of a young man playing a tape.
I remember that.
As an FU to his father. I was like, no, this is meta. I like this.
Yeah.
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 What was the song
God,
growing up? What was one of the ones that you guys played just like relentlessly?
There's songs that are burnt out for me.
Music at all or cassette tape?
Any music at all. Like what was like that? Well, I guess for me that specifically that was cassette tape. I've got others in other mediums, but like what was a song or album that you like was definitely always in your whatever player it was?
I know. It's funny because some of that stuff, like I don't have fond memories of it. Like I can't listen to the music anymore because it's gotten burnt out. One of them is, anything Metallica, because I played football and whatever. Everyone always had that in the weight room, and everyone was like, "This is a song." I got so burnt out, and I'm like, "Yeah, I understand, and I get it," And every time I hear it, I'm like, gross. Like I don't think I'll ever like that stuff ever again. It just got so burnt out on it. So there's a lot of things that I listen to a ton, and then I'm almost scared to go back and listen to it because I want to make sure that I haven't ruined it. But I know
test run.
Yeah, I'm just like, do I still like this, or I'm also embarrassed that I liked it at any point in time. Like at one point, I was really into Good Charlotte, and I pulled up some Good Charlotte. I'm like, God, man, why did you like this? Like, this isn't that good. Like, this is really, really embarrassing that you like this. I'd say for me, it was a lot of Blink-182, Enema of the State was a big album for me because that's actually how I learned how to play guitar. Is I played along to that album, and I learned by playing those songs over and over again. So like that's an album that I wore that CD out. That's for sure.
I would have to say Soundgarden, Super Unknown.
Nice.
Yeah, Black Hole Sun was another one of
Yeah.
those songs where I'm like, I don't need to hear that song ever again. I'm good. I've reached my capacity.
There's a lot of good stuff on that album that was never played on the radio.
Yeah.
A lot of good, a lot of good deep cuts. Really good album.
Black Hole Sun is still one that I don't care how many times I hear it. I don't know why. I don't think I'll ever tire of that song. I should go back and listen to some of the early like the full albums of some of those bands back in the day.
That's fun to do. Like just to, sometimes when I'm working, I'm like, you know what? Oh, this band just popped in my head. I'm like, let me go see if I can find this stuff again, and we'll see how it is. A lot of it, I'm like, oh, I think to say I've grown past it makes it seem like it's for children, but it's not. It's just something that I'm not into anymore. Like some music, you kind of just like, oh yeah, this spoke to me at this very specific time in my life, and now I'm like, it doesn't have any meaning to me anymore, just because it's not what I'm into. So
yeah,
I'm gonna pat myself on the back right now because I've gotten a lot more accepting of music. I used to be a real dickhead about it. I used to be like,
well, where's the applause button? Where's the cheering and
where's my cheering?
God.
Sorry, I was asleep at the wheel on that one.
It's so funny because we were thinking about torture songs. If you would have asked me when I was 18, I'd be like, anything country, I'd be like, country sucks. And I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, I accept it. I don't like country, but I'm accepting of it because I'm like, I get why people like it. Like it makes sense to me. It's not my cup of tea, but I get it. I'm not as anti like some of these genres as I used to be. I'm just like, I'm more or less, I understand that some people it really works, because there's nothing worse than you yourself really being into a song or a band, and you like, just very graciously giving this to someone else. Like, I would like you to click on this link and hear this song that means the world to me. And the other person clicks on it, and they're like,
right.
Yeah, I guess it's okay. And they're like, no, you don't understand. This song, you're like, yeah, I get it. It just doesn't work for me. Like, it's not my thing. So I've gotten really specific. I'm like, I will share this with you. It will probably not have the same impact on you that it has had on me, but maybe you can appreciate where I'm coming from with it. But I'm not going to be like, what do you mean it didn't blow your mind? What do you mean? Like, why don't you feel like, why aren't you feeling what I'm feeling right now?
When Doug shares things like that with me, it's hysterical because it comes with like a paragraph disclaimer of like caveats of like, hey, check this out. I thought this was cool. Here's what it meant to me. I'm opening my soul to you. But if you don't like it, that's cool. Whatever. Like, it's so tender. And I'm like, it's okay, man. I'll probably like it.
It's like me trying to make up for my past mistakes is what I'm trying to do, I guess.
It makes sense though, because things like that are so like, you attach such specific, if it's an older song, you attach to specific memories or fond emotions to it. And if it's a newer one, like it might tug at like there's certain new ones that you and I have taught. Now that you're a father, there's certain ones that you've heard and you're like, oh boy, I got all the feels. And so like there's something really special about that. So to share it, it is kind of like you're bearing a piece of your soul to someone.
Yeah. It's like anything you recommend though, like a movie or a TV show. Like I got to the point whenever my mom recommends something, I'm like, cool, I don't need to watch that, because her and our tastes are so different. She's like, you have to watch it. And I'm like, I won't then if I have to, because I'm not going to like it probably, because I don't agree with the way that I don't have the same likes and dislikes as you do. So I also take that with a grain of salt, because I've had people suggest things to me and I'm like, it's just not. Like video games, like, you gotta try this game. I'm like, it's not the kind of game that I like to play. I'm sure it's great, but I mean, I'll watch you play it, but I don't want to play it. It's not my style of stuff. So I think it's, I'm happy I've gotten to a little bit better place with that, where if I'm recommending something, I absolutely want someone to watch it, but I'm also under the thing of like, well, it's probably not it may not be what they're into. So if they're, like, I want Justin to watch the movie Hereditary. He doesn't really like scary movies. He's not into it. I'm like, that's cool. I'd love to talk to you about it, because
I might watch it. I watched Midsummer today.
Oh yeah? What'd you think?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That one. How about you, Kristi? You seen either Hereditary or Midsummer?
You don't like scary movies? I have not seen Hereditary. I heard of it. I think I had it on my list of movies to see, because I do like scary movies. I do like thrillers. But so Justin, you don't like scary movies at all, or just gory movies, or
I tend
supernatural, or
I tend to steer clear of anything labeled a horror movie. The The gore, like the torture porn kind of stuff, like you can keep that. I don't really find it doesn't do anything for me. I don't really find it that entertaining or engaging. It's also the older I've gotten, the harder it is for me to stomach it. Thrillers and suspense and supernatural, very much okay with those. The Hereditary, initially I viewed it, or it was pitched to me or whatever, as like a horror movie or one of those like really scary movies. Based off of what Midsummer was, which is the same director, I feel like I definitely be able to handle Hereditary now.
It's definitely spookier than Midsummer.
Maybe not then.
I'm telling you, Midsummer was like a breath of fresh air. I'm like, okay, this isn't that. I expected it to be really intense. I'm like, oh, I think Hereditary's spookier.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay,
So
I'm gonna have to watch that.
You're definitely into horror movies then.
Yeah, well, I'm not into the gore just for the sake of gore, like Saw and Hostel.
Yeah.
Those are a bit much. I don't need that. But I liked, movies like Orphan. God, do you remember that movie Orphan? Came out like 10 years ago with Vera Farmiga. Farmiga? I don't know.
Yeah.
I never know if I say her name
No, I
right.
don't
And
know that one.
Peter Skarsgård, who I love. That was a great movie. I love The Exorcist. I love anything about the supernatural. David Cronenberg's movie The Brood.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
That
I like
came out in
Cronenberg though.
1979. See The Brood. That is
Okay.
creepy as all get out. That's one movie I'll never ever forget.
Oh, this is Drew's worst
but yeah, but I
nightmare.
love
It has
thrillers.
children.
He's terrified of kids in scary movies, or just kids in general, really.
Oh, really? Oh. Oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah.
I hate that. Tell him to watch it, but don't tell him it's supposed to be really scary. Tell him it's really funny at the end.
Right.
It's a horror comedy from the 70s.
It's not funny at the end. Man, I'll never ever forget that movie.
That's amazing.
But yeah, so I do like that stuff.
What about it do you like? Because I think for me, what I struggle the most with is I mean, I like a good jump scare, but like there's something about 2 hours of just being on the edge of your seat. Like I just can't handle that.
I don't know. I like it. Even as a kid, you know what? And this is, I guess, strange saying it out loud, but I was never really into kid movies. Like one of my favorite movies as a child was The Shining, and I knew every word.
Nice.
Really?
Yeah, like my dad and I both liked Jack Nicholson, and so I loved his movies. So as a 10-year-old kid, I knew that entire scene where he's going up the stairway with the axe chasing Wendy.
Yeah.
And I knew the dialogue back and forth, and I was really into movies. So I'd watch movies over and over and over, and I'd memorize things, and then I'd go to school and recite dialogue. And I'm sure my mother was like, "What are we gonna do with her?" But I don't know. Just even as a kid, I've always really liked horror movies. But then I'd scare myself, and then I watched The Brood on HBO and couldn't sleep because that was creepy as hell. But I'd still want to watch them again. So I've just always had a love of scary movies. So,
That's
and that
really
has not
interesting.
gone away. So,
Yeah,
Speaking
even
of, have
or
you seen?
psychotic, it's however you want to look
If
at
you
it.
love The Shining, have you seen Doctor Sleep, the sequel?
No, I have not. And you know what? You're the third person this week that has asked me that, because around last Thursday or the week before Thursday, we were supposed to go to the theater actually and see The Shining on the big screen. But my dog got sick and we ended up
Aw.
not leaving the house. And yeah, so that was being replayed out on big screens, which would have been really cool.
Yeah, I
See that.
definitely
would've
recommend
been awesome.
Doctor Sleep. It's a really great movie, and it's the sequel to the movie The Shining, because obviously there's the Stephen King book, which varies differently from
Right.
Kubrick's film, and obviously the book sequel follows closely to the book. So this is a really nice. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done, and it definitely
Okay.
is. It has some very great reminiscent scenes from The Shining, from the first movie. So if you're a big fan of the original, I think you'll like Dr. Sleep. It's got Ewan McGregor in it and some really great actors, and I think it's really great. It's one of those movies that was a bit of a sleeper, if you will, when it came out. Like, it got pretty good reviews, but it didn't get a lot of buzz. And thank you.
Okay.
I think it's really, really good. I highly recommend it.
Good. Well, good. I have a list here of things I need to be watching.
Nice.
On my gigless nights. So I need to do something with my weekends.
That's right.
There's one more horror film that I would say that you should add to that list, and it's one that I try to watch every week, and it is it's known as The Throwdown.
Welcome to the Throwdown.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we've entered The Throwdown. So this week we've got a very topical throwdown. Doug, would you like to cue up your voice modulator?
Oh, thank you. All right. Hold on. Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with
Ready?
it. Yes.
All right, here we go. The Throwdown this week.
This week's Throwdown is Sean Connery's James Bond versus Roger Moore's James Bond.
Decisions.
Right? So that's what it is. Hold on. Someone make a note. Text me. I need to do a fanfare, like a ba-bum kind of thing. That's the sound effect. I keep fucking forgetting every week. And I gotta remember.
Yay! We've got the kiss cheering.
Yeah, but we use that afterwards. We
Very
can't
much.
overuse it.
That's fair. Good enough.
Anyway, or I could just do. That could be the one. We're technically only allowed to play the first second of Headstrong by Trap, and we play it as often as we can.
Really?
Yeah. So
it never gets old. It never gets old.
Anyway, so we're doing a James Bond throwdown. It's going to be Sean Connery's James Bond versus Roger Moore's James Bond. Now, Kristi, how versed in James Bond lore are you?
Not very. Very. The ones I've seen some Pierce Brosnan, GoldenEye.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah. So not too. I mean, I know who both of those actors are, and what time period they were in. But
Sure.
I think this is. I feel like it does. You don't really need to know much about the James Bonds. I feel like this is going to be a relatively easy throwdown to decide. But I will open it up to Doug. Why don't you kick us off with the roundabout here?
So I'll be honest with you. I'm also not as big of a James Bond fan. Like, I never really was into the series, but my understanding of these two, sort of like comparing them, is that Roger Moore's James Bond are generally frowned upon by most folks. They got pretty kitschy. They were very much very gadget heavy sort of movies. Whereas I think Sean Connery's, while it did have some gadgets and things of that nature, it was a little more suave and a little more less reliant on technology and things to kind of get them through. So obviously both of them thwart bad guys, but as Justin brought up, in our production meeting last night, Roger Moore goes to space at one point in a movie to fight bad guys in space. So
first he goes to the Amazon, and then from the Amazon he takes a trip up to space. So there's that
logical progression, Yep. Amazon and then space.
Yeah.
So I mean, my initial thought would be, I think Sean Connery's Bond is the favorite here, in my opinion, just because he gets so many more cool points, just based on how he was and how he operated. Whereas Roger Moore's, unfortunately, were just all I remember from most of Roger Moore's is there's this very specific screenshot of him in sad clown makeup, because apparently he was going undercover as a clown, and there's just this picture of him just being like in sad clown makeup. I'm like, that's not who James Bond is. So that's kind of like my initial assessment.
That was from the film Killer Clown. James Bond is Killer Clown.
Yeah, it's just it's very unsettling.
Kristi, where do you stand on this? What are your thoughts between these two?
Well, Sean Connery, didn't he come back in '83 to do another film?
He did.
Right?
Yes.
Which I thought was, I think he should win some points just for being gutsy enough to do that. And I did read that he kind of played up the fact, or kind of had some self-deprecating humor where he had a toupee or something because he was older, and he kind of played up the whole thing with right? Didn't I read that?
I think you are correct on that.
There
Yes.
was a toupee involved, and I mean, that's got to take a, some confidence and a good sense of humor to be able to leave the franchise for a bit, come back again, and be confident enough to just take over the role again as an older actor.
Yeah.
So I got to give him props for that.
Absolutely.
And I just think that Sean Connery's a classy guy. I just think he's a classy guy.
100%.
I gotta
100%.
give him points for that.
I would say, for me, a gorilla's asshole has more sexual appeal than Roger Moore. I think he is. I don't understand how anyone is saying that he's like, oh, this debonair, sexy British spy. No, false.com. That is a hard stop. Also, he walks, he moves. He's about as agile as Frankenstein's monster. So to say that he's taken out people half his age that are like these like foot soldiers, in the whatever Cold War he's fight. No, absolutely not. He is just a horrible, horrible choice for this role as England's most debonair, dashing spy. It's Sean all the way. Sean wins any debate about James Bond. Sean Connery's the winner. Done. And I love Daniel Craig's James Bond. Love. But Sean Connery wins James Bond.
I'll say this much. Roger Moore is a pretty dashing guy. I think it depends. I think it depends on. I mean, I'm looking at a photo right now. He's a good-looking dude. I think it depends
Is it
on
him
when.
in a male thong, Doug?
It's what? It looks good on him. It's sparkly. It's
Right.
got sequins.
There you go.
Wrapping it
It's
right back up.
obviously his birthday. So can't we celebrate a guy wearing a sequin thong on his birthday?
Here's the
Justin?
thing. As an actor, I think he's fantastic. As a human being, fantastic. As James Bond, go fuck yourself. No.
Hey, man. Yeah, James Bond knows how to woo people, and he does it with a thong.
Also, I was talking with Heg today, and he informed me that in Cannonball Run, Roger Moore played a character who thought he was Roger Moore. And I've got to give him credit. Like, that is amazing to play that role. Like, this character was like falsely remembering times on set as Roger Moore. It was amazing, apparently. So, like, Roger Moore, totally okay guy. I do not respect the James Bond he played.
That's fair.
In the slightest.
I think
Yeah.
that's a fair assessment.
So, with the three of us weighing in like this, I feel like we have a pretty even consensus.
Yes.
We're
Yeah.
saying, Sean Connery for the
Most definitely.
Excellent.
Good stuff.
Well done. Well, this was a real treat, Kristi. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us.
It was my pleasure. I had a great time, you guys. It
Awesome.
was a lot of fun.
Well,
Learned a
before we
lot.
go, we'd like to take this moment to sort of give you the opportunity to talk about whatever you got going on, to promote your social medias, or even if you just want to recommend something, whether it's a TV show, music, a book, a movie. The floor is yours. By all means, speak and let everyone know what's going on.
Great, thank you. I just finished a film called Saturday Night Inside Out, and we just finished that last month, and I think it should be out by January. It's going to hit the festival circuit. Hopefully, I'll have some band gigs. Look for Crawford's Daughter, crawfordsdaughter.com for gigs, hopefully starting in 2021. And I have another film, a short film called West Park, that's hitting the festival circuit, and we're actually screening it on the 21st of this month at the Davis Theater in Chicago. So I'm real excited about that. So we'll see where that goes. And as far as something that I'm really into right now, if you've not heard of the singer Shoshana Bean, have you heard of her?
No.
I had said the reason I had musical theater on my mind early in our conversation is because recently I just started getting into this actress singer Shoshana Bean. She played Elphaba in Wicked and the lead character in the musical Waitress. But oh my God, this woman has the voice. I mean, she is a phenomenal rock, R&B, pop, just soul singer, and she's absolutely phenomenal. If you check out any videos of her, Shoshana Bean, it's definitely she's under the radar. I'd not heard of her before, but she's a Broadway actress and singer, and she's phenomenal. Definitely worth checking out.
Wait, does she do a cover to "I Want to Dance with Somebody"? Because
I wouldn't be surprised.
That's okay. Well, I know what I'm doing after this is over.
If I had one to recommend, she does a duet with another Broadway singer. Her name is Cynthia Ervio. I think she's a British Broadway singer. But they do a Taylor Swift cover called "I Did Something Bad." I think that's what it's called.
Yes, I see that.
Bad.
Yes.
And they're both dressed in black, and there's a cello and a violin behind them, and that's it.
Ooh.
That's awesome.
I love strings.
Brilliant.
That sounds awesome.
Oh, brilliant. You'll be all over this.
Wow.
I just
Very
discovered
cool.
it like yesterday.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Well, I've got something to do after this podcast.
Great recommendation.
Yeah.
How about you, Justin?
I'm going to recommend the next season, third season, I believe, of My Next Guest Needs No Introduction is on Netflix. It's a David Letterman interview talk show series where he does like an hour-long extended interview and really dives into like it's less interview and more conversation, and it's really cool. I would recommend checking out season 3, specifically the Dave Chappelle episode. To me, Dave Chappelle, I feel he is one of our best thinkers currently. I think he ruminates on things and really like takes things apart and kind of not, I don't want to say he's a philosopher by any stretch of the imagination, but he definitely has really, I think, well done takes on a lot of things. And I think he's a very smart man. So listening to Letterman interview him was so awesome. So awesome. I would highly recommend that. Douglas,
Nice.
what do you got?
Kind of in that same vein, there's the documentary on Showtime called The Comedy Store, and it's a
so good
multi-episode dive into what many consider to be the mecca of comedy at the Comedy Store, comedy club out in LA, and it is amazing. It's chock full of just interviews with all sorts of comedians, and they go into the store or to the history of the store and everything about it. It's an amazing thing. I think, I don't know how many episodes are out. I've watched 4 of them so far. I don't know how long.
4 are currently out. Yeah, I don't know how many more they got, but yeah.
I don't know either, but it's phenomenal. So check that out. It's on Showtime. It's just called The Comedy Store. It's a fantastic documentary. So by all means, check that out. So, and then when you're done with that, come check out Mind Gap on all our social medias at Mind Gap Podcast. Also check out our YouTube channel. We post our full episodes there, as well as highlights from our show, as well as highlights from our video game streams. And of course, don't forget to check out the video game stream at 8 p.m. Central Time Saturdays at twitch.tv/MindGapPodcast. And also be sure to check out Justin online as well.
That's right, on Instagram and Twitter at Justin_Michael, spelled Mikel. It's the fun way of spelling it. And while you're in the online realm, check us out on
Spotify
and on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, all the podcast services. You can share us around, like, subscribe, rate, review, all those good things. The big one is sharing. Just copy the link, send it out there to your crew. I think that's what the kids are saying now. And let them know that you think this is worthwhile, because it goes a long way for us. And then 2east8th.com/mindgap, and then 2east8th in general. Keep an eye on all our socials. And this Friday, the 5th, I think? Friday?
the 6th.
It's the 6th.
6.
Friday the 6th. Episode 5, starring the one and only Kristi Alsip, is coming out, and it should be a good time. So keep an eye on all that. And we're inching closer and closer, ever closer to Sid Penrose coming out.
Yay! I can't wait.
We hit another snafu. I'll tell you about it off air, Doug. But we're pushing through, man. We're fucking pushing through. We'll get there.
You have to carry on. That's what we have to do. Kristi, thank you again so much for being here. This is so great talking to you and getting to know you, and you're always welcome back.
Thank you. Oh, great. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I also want to say to our Twitch followers, thank you so much for hanging out and chatting with us tonight.
And to our OG listeners who made this all possible, thank you for listening.
And Justin, thank you.
Douglas, big old thank you to you.
And you all have a dandy fucking week.
Mind Gap Podcast.